Hello ladies and gentlemen, Nick here and welcome to my review of Doctor Who The Legacy of Time, Big Finish's 20th anniversary of Doctor Who audios at Big Finish, and this is the celebration or box set containing, sorry about this, 6 audio stories that form part of one big storyline. Okay, so the plots of each episode, basically the plot of the overall series is time is collapsing. Temporal chaos and devastation are appearing throughout the many lives of the Doctor and his friends. The Doctor must save history itself, and he's going to need all the help he can get. And it stars Tom Baker, Peter Davison, Colin Baker, Sylvester McCoy, and Paul McGann as the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th Doctors, respectively, and also has Tim Trelor as the 3rd Doctor, supplementing for John Pertwee. It also has cameos from David Bradley, Fraiser, Hines, and David Tennant as the 1st, 2nd, and 10th Doctors, respectively, with the former two in supplements for William Hartnell and Patrick Troughton. No supplement for John Hurt, but oh well. So yeah, and it's a shame that Tennant and Bradley and Hines as well didn't get more involved in the story, maybe for the 25th anniversary. But they still make some nice cameos in part 6. So, on to each story. The first story is Lives in Ruins by James Goss. On a strange ruined world, a renowned archaeologist opens up an ancient tomb only to find another archaeologist got there first. Professors Summerfield and Song unite to solve a mystery. Then the 8th Doctor arrives and things become dangerous because their friend isn't quite the man Benny and River remember. This story is written, by James Goss. This story features the 8th Doctor as played by Paul McGann, and also guest stars River Song as played by Alex Kingston, and Bernie Summerfield as played by Lisa Bowerman. With surprisingly, it's Bowerman, not Barrowman. That's John Barrowman. Surprise, he's not here, but okay. Bowerman is actually her character is actually the one who's the one waiting inside the tomb instead of River Song, which it usually is. So this is a fun, enjoyable story that features a crossover between the two professor archaeologists of Doctor Who universe who have travelled with the Doctor. One of whom is actually married to the Doctor. The other one is a very regular companion of the 7th Doctor, and also got her own spin-off series. Well, so did River Song, but Bernice was actually the first character to get her own audio spin-off. In fact, it even predates the Doctor Who audios by 1 year. It was her 20th anniversary last year, about this time, roughly. At this point, when they meet the Doctor, he's going through his Time War phase, or at least just before the events of Time War 1, probably. The Time War 1 box set, so it's probably coming up to that bit. And he's currently travelling with a companion called Rhea, played by Alexander Riley, who is a robot who the Doctor created as someone to have a bit of a laugh with, someone to support him, someone to tell him that he was right, or he's always got a good plan, or that they're going on a great adventure. And Riley does a brilliant job. The character is a bit obnoxious, but she's a fun, obnoxious character, and she's really enjoyable to listen to, even if she's a bit annoying to start with. We've also got two scavenger junk trader guys, characters played by Okizini Morrow and Beth Chalmers, and yeah, this is the story is basically that they're basically supposedly on Gallifrey, except it turns out it's a TARDIS, and it's manipulating the ideas, but the Doctor is trying to stop the salvage team from taking parts of Gallifrey with him, and it's quite an interesting story. The best bits are the banter between River and Benny, and it's really enjoyable. It does take its time to actually get to the actual plot, but it's still a good listen. On the whole, I'd give the Life in Ruins an 8 out of 10. Next up is The Split Infinitive by John Dorney. A criminal gang appears to have recruited a member with time-bending powers. It's a case for the countermeasures team in the 1960s and the 1970s. The 7th Doctor and 8th have their work cut out to save the day twice over and make sure that Gilmore, Rachel and Allison don't collide with their past or their future. And this story sees the 7th Doctor as played by Sylvester McCoy and companion Ace as played by Sophie Aldred, and also guest characters, the Countermeasurers, who first appeared in 1963's Remembrance of the Daleks, Group Captain Ian Gilmore, Simon Williams, Professor Rachel Jensen, Pamela Salem, and Dr. Alison Williams, Karen Geltor, as well as also Countermeasure's original character, Sir Tobias Kinsella, as played by Hugh Ross. And he's also, these characters are great to listen to, and them working with the 7th Doctor and Ace, who they've known since Remembrance of the Daleks, apart from Toby, who would have heard about them and read up about them. And it's great to see them go up against these villains who turn out to be the Rocket Men, who Big Finish fans will know about. And they're really good. I also enjoy listening to Vince Lee as Kazan, the main villain. He's so fun, he's so enjoyable. And I really enjoyed the whole split thing, how they have to do things in the 60s and the 70s. It's really enjoyable and proves to be a lot of fun and very enjoyable. It does feel a bit slow in some places, but for the most part, it's a really enjoyable audio. I also give this story an 8 out of 10. Really enjoyable. Okay, next episode is The Sacrifice of Joe Grant by Guy Adams, the first of his 2 audios. He also writes part 6, Collision Course. When pockets of temporal instability appear in a Dorset village, unit are called in. Soon, Kate, Stewart and Joe Jones find themselves working alongside the 3rd Doctor, whilst Osgood battles to get them home. But this isn't the first time Unit has faced this threat, only before it seems that Joe didn't survive. And yeah, the title is a bit misleading, The Sacrifice of Joe Grant, when in actual fact it's Joe Jones who ends up saving the day due to some wibbly-wobbly timey-wimey factor. But we'll get to that in a bit. Basically what happens is Joe Jones, played by Katie Manning, and Osgood, played by Ingrid Oliver, they're hanging out together following the Unit series audios. I wonder when they're going to do the Unit Suspended series. That might be the next one. Unit Suspended. Basically, after the events of Resolution, and then when they come back at a later point in the TV series, it'd be Unit Reformed. Yeah, Unit Reformed. That's the next 2 box sets right there. Unit Suspended and Unit Reformed. There you go. Big Finish, take my ideas. Okay, it's just the title ideas. But I'll happily create some ideas for you if you want. But Kate Stewart, Gemma Redgrave, calls them in about the time-temporal problem, and she and Joe accidentally travel back in time through one of these things to the 1970s or the 80s, depending on when it actually took place. Knowing timelines in 70s Doctor Who stories, they could have been set in the 70s or the 80s, or even the 60s. And they meet the 3rd Doctor, as played by Tim Trelor, taking the place of John Pertwee. As John Pertwee's been dead for over 20 years, sadly. And the 3 of them have to work out a way to close these time portals. And it's also a nice thing, the Doctor and Joe interacting with each other, the Doctor interacting with an older Joe. And it's really great to have their talks. And yeah, in the end, Joe realises she has to sacrifice herself, and this sort of merges in with the timelines, as it makes a lot of sense. Joe still survived, but also supposedly died, as it's Joe Jones who sacrifices herself, not Joe Grant, as Joe Grant is probably still in London or something, or at Unit HQ. Also, fun fact, Alison Williams from the previous story also makes a cameo appearance in this story as the witness who apparently saw Joe sacrifice herself. The Doctor then goes and creates a device to help Kate and Osgood rescue Joe so that she would survive and escape and return to her own time. So, brilliant. Also, at the end of the first story, there was a sneaky little bit at the end that kind of teased the villains. Well, in this story, the villains seem to have a bit more involvement in the story without having to reveal themselves. They saw one of them pretends to be Osgood and tricks Kate into doing something that she shouldn't have done. Whoopsies. It's also nice to see Kate conflict with herself whether she should contact her dad without telling him about who that she is his daughter, but just just speaking with him when he's still alive. And we get a nice cameo from John Coleshaw as Brigadier Leffrey Stewart. So that was brilliant. On the whole, The Sacrifice of Joe Grant is a really good and a really enjoyable story, and I highly recommend it to all fans of Unit, Joe Grant, or the Third Doctor. I'm going to give this story a 9 out of 10, and by the looks of it, these things seem to be turning for this big master plan that the villains, who are sort of revealed at the end of part 1, but properly revealed in part 5. Wheels are turning for them to move their plan into motion. But before we get to their plan into motion, we have part 4. Okay, part 4 is Relative Time by Matt Fitton, and it sees the 5th Doctor, played by Peter Davison, meet Jenny, the 10th Doctor's daughter from the Doctor's Daughter, and she got her own spin-off series last year. So, relative dimensions. Disaster strikes inside the time vortex, and the 5th Doctor is thrown together with someone from his future, someone claiming to be his daughter. Kelotematic Time Lord, the 9, believes it's his chance to seal something huge, but Jenny just wants her dad to believe in her. And this is the only one that I don't really care for. This one's just for me. But basically, I'm not sure. I think they were playing someone else originally, but I'm not sure who it was going to be. I know they were planning to have the Graceless team from some of the Graceless who got their own spin-off following an adventure with, I think it was the 7th Doctor in a monthly range story. They were planning them for the 5th story. Oh, no, I think they might have been planning them here. No, I think they were planning for the Graceless team here, and Jaeger and Lightfoot were planned for story 5. Or was it going to be both of them? No, I think it was Graceless that was planned for this story. But they couldn't get them in or something, and so they decided to replace it with Jenny, which actually is a very good idea, having Georgia Moffat, or now Georgia Tennant, team up with her father, Peter Davison, her actual biological father, and also the Doctor that her now husband, David Tennant, who she worked with in The Doctor's Daughter and also Dreamland, but The Doctor's Daughter was the one that she was playing Jenny in. Different Jenny to the one in series 6, 7, and 8. And also different Jenny to the one from Dalek Invasion of Earth. But yeah, so it makes sense that she worked with her future husband in some stories, and his Doctor was, well, he had Tom Baker and Peter Davison, but mostly Peter Davison, and who is her father. So it only makes sense for her to now work with her father. I mean, she already did sort of in a 2000 monthly episode, Red Dawn, which is an okay story, where she played a character who's actually quite relevant to the story, a quite important character in a twist. But now they kind of seem to be working side by side. There's even a really nice picture with them. Some very nice pictures in this booklet, this box set. But yes, it's actually quite nice. And so their team up which is a pretty great idea. And also the 9, played by John Heffernan, is fantastic, as is his sidekick, Fana, played by Roni McConnor. The 9 is fantastic. I haven't really heard the 9 in anything before. I haven't heard the previous audios he's been in, but from what I hear now, I'm looking forward to hearing him again. Same with Fana, if she's been in any of them, but I don't know if she's a new character for this box set and will appear in later stories, or if she's already appeared. But they're great villains. They're really fun. The 9 is such an entertaining villain, and John Heffernan does a fantastic job of the role. And Ronnie Akonda plays Fana fantastically as well. But sadly, the story is quite dull. It's about some people going to have a look at a time disturbance, possibly an old TARDIS blowing up, but the ship crashes, possibly due to Jenny, into the Doctor's TARDIS. And things then go wrong, and Vortisaurs, first appearing in the 8th Doctor story, Storm Warning, which was actually his first audio, for some reason attacking the ship. I can't actually remember what's going on. This story is nuts. And on top of that, we've got a stupid captain played by Mandy Simons, who actually reminds me of a captain from Earthshock, but stupid. The Earthshock one is actually a pretty good character. And a Mr. Jagarian, played by Christian Brassington, who I think is in Poldark. According to the documentary, the behind the scenes, he said he was playing a similar character in Poldark around the time of recording, so people might know him from there. But they're not really that great characters, and the story's just not that interesting. I don't really care for it, and I'm not really that worried fond of Jenny. She's okay, and Georgia Tennant does a great job in the role, but I'm not really so worried about the character. Matt, in his review, kind of compared her to be a 10th Doctor clone, which technically she kind of is, in a way, as seen in the Doctor's Daughter, but I don't know, it's just I don't know. And from the trailer of her own box set, similar thing. I mean, keep the character consistent, I suppose. But I don't know. It just doesn't. I don't know. This story just doesn't quite work. Thankfully, the 5th Doctor is still really great as usual. All the Doctors are really great in this set, including the direction they take the 8th Doctor down in the first one. And Trelor's performance is the third in the third story, and yeah, they do great jobs. It's just I just don't think the story's that particularly brilliant. And coming from Matt Fitton, who's usually a very strong writer, so I've heard, in Big Finish, which that is a bit of a shame. This is probably for most Big Finish regulars / fans. This is probably one that they're probably going to think is one of his weaker stories, and I can see what why they might think that. I don't know. I'm just theorising. They might think that. I might be completely wrong. On the whole, relative time just isn't quite that great. So I'm going to give that one a 5 out of 10. I don't think it's particularly strong. I think it's okay. It's fun listening to the 5th Doctor and Jenny interacting, and the 9 is fantastic. And Farna's also a brilliant character. But the story's just not that interesting. And it's great to hear the Vorticals, though. That's cool, even though they don't really do much. Much apart from trying to rip the ship apart. But oh well, relative time, not that great. Next up, we have The Adventures of Possibility by Jonathan Morris. D.I. Patricia Mendez is used to the strange, but even she is surprised that when the 18th century falls onto her patch. Fortunately, she has the founders of modern policing to help her with her inquiries. And when the 6th Doctor and Charlie arrive, they find armed hostile forces ready to change Earth history forever. This is a fantastic story. It starts off with Henry Fielding, played by Duncan Wisby, basically the founder of the Bow Street Runners, the forerunners to the police force, basically accidentally ending up in 2009, 300 years or so after his own time. And meeting up with D.I. Patricia Mendez, played by Anna Hope. Both characters have met the 6th Doctor beforehand in previous audios, by the sound of it. And the 6th Doctor is currently travelling with, played by Colin Baker, is currently travelling with Charlotte Pollard, played by India Fisher, when she joined him after travelling with the 8th Doctor, and probably before her own spin-off or after her own spin-off, I don't know. But yeah. So it's fun to hear Six and Charlie talking with Mendez and Fielding. And also Fielding's brother John, played by Richard Hensel. He's really fun as well. And also the villains of the whole series, I will talk about those later, are starting to have a bit more interference with this plot. For starters, you've got the same thing that happened in part 3 with the whole time portal thing, except now it's also opening up gateways to alternative timelines, such as a fascist 1950s England with Commander Stables, played by Sarah Poyser, and and Mr. Wadmore, played by Delroy Atkinson, are from, and they're basically trying to invade their own history in a way, and it kind of comes in a kind of a loop. So the 6th Doctor and his allies have to stop them. And it's revealed that the main villains of the series are the Sirens of Time, who first appeared in the first Doctor Who audio. The Sirens of Time, the first Doctor Who Big Finish audio. The first monthly range story, The Sirens of Time. And boy, did I get the chills when I first heard the siren call and voice and the music cue in the first episode, the very end of the first episode. Yep, they're up to no good once again in this box set, and part 5 sees them trying to tamper with history. The Sixth Doctor and Charlie are able to stop them using a paradox and able to close off the realities, with Wagmore eventually being stuck. But after joining, changing sides, he's now stuck, but he's given a place in the 21st century. There might even be a bit of a romance between him and Mendes going on, maybe. We might see that in a future story. But yeah, so the Adventures of Relativity, Adventures of Possibility, sorry. Brilliant script writing, brilliant acting. I mean, all the acting is brilliant for this story, and most of the writing. I mean, the only story that doesn't really get brilliant writing is part 4. But not bad, but it's not that brilliant. But Possibility has a brilliant script that is really held together, and it's just, it's so great. This is a brilliant penultimate story of the saga of the series, and it just fits in really well, and it makes a lot of sense come together. And things are finally starting to make sense. So I'm going to give The Adventures of Possibility a 10 out of 10. Sadly, it was originally supposed to feature Jago and Lightfoot, but Christopher Benjamin sadly passed away in 2017, meaning we can have Lightfoot, so they couldn't do Jago, and they can't have Jago on his own. Trevor Baxendale passed away. Christopher Benjamin didn't want to continue without Trevor Baxendale for the audio dramas. He might do some audio books, companion chronicles and the like, or short trips, but as for the audio dramas, no, sadly. But they were able to bring in Mendes and the Fieldings, some more minor characters in the Big Finish canon, but you've got Charlie Pollard there, so that sort of makes sense. Then again, I think the Graces team may have been less well known to the Doctor Who fans than Jenny, but to Big Finish audiences, it might have made a bit more sense. The final story is Collision Course, written by Guy Adams. This is his second story. Strange that Nicholas Briggs didn't write one of these, considering he wrote The Sirens of Time. But Collision Course, fallout from the temporal distortions has now reached Gallifrey. To find the cause, Leela and Romana remember travels with the Fourth Doctor to the same world at different times. The enemy is revealed, and it may take more than one Doctor to prevent the destruction of everything. And yeah, that's pretty much the plot. Now, there is more than one Doctor in this story, but the main Doctor that features is Tom Baker's Fourth Doctor, as he appears through most of the story, before everybody else from the audience, plus some cameos, join up later on. The Sirens of Time have basically changed time by preventing the first test flight of the TARDIS, the first TARDIS, to basically be a failure, and this killed its occupants. And now time distortion is everywhere. And the story doesn't really explain everything that's come before, but you can probably work it out later on. And I think this is my working out of it. The Sirens of Time have disrupted the TARDIS, meaning it's exploding in time and space. That's what we see in Part 4, and that's what we're going to get. That's where we go in Part 1. The remains of it. It's the explosion is the thing that the people are going to see in relative time, and what's left is where we go in Life in Ruins. Meanwhile, the Sirens of Time have been causing these sort of holes in the fabric of space and time, as seen in The Sacrifice of Joe Grant and The Adventures of Possibility, and probably also had something to do with the Split Initiative, with time running two sets of timelines, 1964 and 1974, running at the exact same time. So, yeah, the future could change with the past if the past is changed, but it wouldn't happen until immediately straight away, such as Kazin's death. Spoiler alert. So yeah, they've been causing all that trouble, and probably the stuff in parts 2, 3, and 5, when they're trying to escape their prison by the Temperon, who features in the original Sirens of Time story, and is credited as alien voice. Nicholas Briggs plays an alien voice, and it turns out to be the Temperon. So that's really cool. So what happens in the story is Leela and Romana know about the temporal disturbances, and they reflect on an adventures they had with their Doctor, 4, when they visited a planet where this same thing was happening, and they both supposedly died on the planet at different times, which, yeah, a bit of a surprise, but yet they're still alive. It's a bit of a paradox. So Leela and Romana have eventually travelled back in time to the first test fight to stop the Sirens of Time, but one of the guys on the TARDIS crew pretty much causes another paradox by making sure the test flight doesn't even happen, so that the Sirens can't interfere. So he and his crew are killed before the Sirens can tamper, meaning that the Sirens have sort of won in a way, and time is still collapsing. So Romana and Leela have to find a way to pilot the TARDIS. It needs 7 pilots. So what does 6 pilots and a captain, but there's only the one of them who can actually pilot it. Romana, as Leela's not a Time Lord, but at this point, that's when the fangasm of the series starts. That's when all the fan pleasing moments of the series come together. If you're not already fan geeking out by this point, and Benny, seemingly not credited as Professor Bernice Summerfield, but just Bernice Summerfield. Maybe this is early on in her travels, possibly. Again, played by Lisa Bowerman. Comes along with 6 doctors. All of the doctors we've had throughout these 6 stories: 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Although I think the order is, it starts with 6 and then it goes to 4, then 8, then 7, then 5 and 3 come out sort of at the same time. 5's out the door first, and they try to pilot the TARDIS. A second TARDIS also appears later to give the audiences another fangasm when the 1st, 2nd, and 10th Doctors come to try and help as well. Although they've now got too many Doctors. They only needed 6, so the 1st, 2nd, and 10th Doctors then tried to do their own thing to help the first TARDIS stabilize, and then allowing their other selves to pilot the TARDIS with Romana as captain. And eventually the Doctors, Romana, Leela, and Benny are able, well, not so much Leela and Benny, but they're there. They're able to save the day, and the TARDIS the first TARDIS is able to make a successful first flight, and time is restored, and the Sirens are presumably once again re-imprisoned by the Tamperon. And yeah, that's about it, really. I think Romana and Leela go back to Gallifrey. Their younger selves and the 4th Doctor in both timelines are freed. I wonder which point in time all these Doctors are coming from. Possibly right after these other adventures, maybe. And everyone else just goes on their separate way. And yeah, this was such a brilliant adventure. I mean, it was a bit of a slow start featuring 4 Romana, Leela, and investigating the planets, but it was interesting in a way. And then the second half, that's when everything goes absolute wow. We possibly have the best second half of an audio I've certainly heard. Although my favourite audio is still Master, monthly range number 49. But this second half is so fantastic. The first half is also pretty good. The second half is fantastic. It's such a fun story. A fun, fangasmy story. And everyone's going to have a smile throughout, I'm sure. At least, certainly throughout the second half. Maybe by the end you'll have a great big whopping smile on your face. So good. Still a bit disappointed 1, 2, and 10 didn't get a huge amount to do throughout the audio. And when they do pop up, they kind of do steal the attention away from the plot for a couple of minutes. I think David Tennant is a bit too excited to be here at the moment, and Fraiser Hines not excited enough. I think David Bradley is pretty much on the same level as how I know him, know his first Doctor to be, without the sexism. Thank God, because Moffat's not writing this story. But yeah, I've heard Fraiser Hines in Light at the end. Well, yeah, Legacy is time as well, but Light at the End as well. And I think it was better in that story. So I don't think he was quite as excited here. Maybe they just didn't get as much lines as Bradley or Tennant. But on the whole, Collision Course is a fantastic conclusion to this story. It's just one other thing is that they don't actually explain the things from the other stories. But I think you can leave that up to your own interpretation. You can work it out for yourself. So that's not a huge problem. On the whole, 10 out of 10. As the box set itself, well, this is a pretty brilliant way to celebrate 20 years. It has a pretty cool good series arc, and has some really enjoyable stories. The only one that doesn't really work is Relative Time, and even if that was with Graceless, the Graceless team, it probably wouldn't be quite that interesting either. I don't even know if the Fifth Doctor would have known about the Graceless team, to be honest. I think they were more of a Seventh Doctor thing. But still, the box set, the story itself, you get 5 fantastic to brilliant to fantastic stories, and 1 okay. I mean, okay, the whole it's not always perfect, but still a really great box set. So I highly recommend it. And if you can find the limited edition CD before it goes out of stock, then certainly highly go for it. So yeah, and with some really great bonus features, behind the scenes featurettes as well, and a nice 10-minute music cue at the end of the box set. At the end of disc 6, you get some nice music as well. So yeah, I'm going to give The Light at the End, the box set, an 8 out of 10. I think it's a very strong. I think it's a strong series. I think it's a great birthday release, but not 100% perfect. But it's certainly one that will please fans, especially Big Finish fans. And hey, if this is what they do for the 20th anniversary, I am hyped for what they do for the 25th anniversary in 2024. You better start planning. Would like to see a few more Doctors as well, by the way, if that's possible. You've got 9 in the last story at the very end, although only six of them do quite a lot of do most of the work, and those 6 are throughout the box set. So it'd be nice to have the 9 Doctors kind of having their kind of working together, maybe even more if we're lucky, for the 25th anniversary box release in 2024. Then I don't know if they'll do something like this, or if they'll do something like the Worlds of Big Finish, or if they'll just do a special monthly release like for the 10th anniversary. But whatever they do, I'm certainly hyped for whatever they plan for the silver anniversary of Doctor Who at Big Finish. 1 year after they have the 60th anniversary of the show, and the year afterwards would also be the 20th anniversary of the new series. I wouldn't be surprised if they wanted to celebrate both occasions, or at least the former. I don't know if they'd celebrate the new series one. They might have a special release with the new series Doctors. Certainly the 25th anniversary will have something, even if it's not a big release, as they'd be having too many big releases all at once, maybe. But yeah, brilliant box set. Highly recommend it, especially if you're a Big Finish fan or an audio fan. And yeah, there's going to be a lot of fancasm, especially in the last half of episode 6. Yeah, episode 4 was the only one that didn't really work for me, but the other ones, brilliant to amazing. Anyway, so that's it from me. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye. Also, before we go, I've also reviewed The Sirens of Time on the Whoniversal's channel, so please check that review out to listen to my thoughts on Big Finish's very first Doctor Who audio, which stars Peter Davison, Colin Baker, and Sylvester McCoy as the 5th, 6th, and 7th Doctors. Okay, bye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Nicholas Payne Retro YouTube channel. Excuse me. Fucking hell. At this... And in the end, it's revealed that the Sirens of Time are behind all this. You interrupted what was going to be a big surprise. Thanks, chaps. Although, anyway, moving on. So the story base, and again, like with part 2, I think in a way, the story is in a similar thing. Well, no, it's not a bit like, no, it's a bit, actually, no, this one's different. Cut that bit. Oh, and also, you can check out a